Somebody told me once, you can't lose if you don't quit.
Yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, there's going to be days you want to quit.
Someone said that there is someone out there making 10 times more than you, and they're not as smart as you because they're not smart enough to doubt themselves.
When you know what your purpose is, which you guys truly do at Skillwork, you know, like, you're not giving up because you know he's in it. And yeah, you know what your purpose is.
What does it take to go from 0 to 100 million?
It's kind of like
Welcome back to the Traditions and Trends podcast. Today we have such a special episode. It is going to be phenomenal. I'm genuinely so excited for this. But we are here, Traditions and Trends, where we bridge generations with traditional expertise and trend insights. My name is Luke Relfs. I'm the marketing director at Oracle Insurance. With me, I got my man, as always, Will Stephanie.
What's up, Luke?
The CEO of Oracle Insurance. And today I'm introducing our special guest. I'll get into his bio here in a second, let y'all know all the amazing things that he's done. But I have with me Mr. Brett Elliott. Brett, how you feeling today?
Great. Appreciate the invite.
It's going to be so awesome. So, Brett, you have done a lot of different things over the years. And so right now you're currently the president and CEO of Skillwork, a travel staffing company focused on skilled trades, headquartered right here in Omaha, Nebraska. But prior to that, you were in the food manufacturing space for 35 years, some great experience there. But I love this. You've successfully built, managed, and sold 2 highly successful businesses before you were even doing Skillwork. And in a moment, we'll get really into what you do at Skillwork and how you went about starting that. But previous to that, you had Cornerstone Farms, a food brokerage business. You grew that to $25 million in revenue before you merged the business with another one in 2001. A couple years later, in 2004, he had formed the Shelby County Cookers LLC at the same time, and then a partner and president of that company. That was him. He led their growth to 250 employees and over $100 million in revenue before selling to Monogram Foods in 2013. And then you become the shareholder and VP for Monogram until you launched Skillwork here, 5, 6, 7 years ago in 2018. And so a lot of stuff to get into and cover here. When I had heard those figures, the businesses, I thought that if you're gonna do that amount of revenue in a business, you have to be able to correctly address the market and what issues people are having, and then develop a company, a product, or a service to successfully help those people. Do you want to talk a little bit, just dive in here on how did you go about assessing a need in the marketplace with your various businesses or Skillwork, really wherever you want to take that? Like, how do you think when you're looking at the market, say, what do people need and what can I do to help them?
No, great question. I appreciate the intro. You made it sound easy, but it's been a fun ride, and so I'm naturally bent towards being an entrepreneur, towards I don't know if it's a gift or a curse sometimes on on not having maybe as good a touch on risk. I'm kind of like, I'm not really, I'm not real fearful of the risk side of it, which you kind of got to be if you want to kind of step into things. But I have always kind of, assessed the market and say where the opportunity. My first business, the brokerage business, was really probably more out of necessity. I was in the food business. I was running, a facility, a plant. At a young age, and I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, and it just kind of led to it. I don't know that I necessarily, said, the market needs that. There was plenty of.
We always need food, right?
Yeah.
That's an eternal market.
That was an easy one. It's like, yes, people will eat, and even in down times, people will eat, and so that one wasn't. But then, fast forward a little bit there to when I started the food company, we made bacon. Again, it wasn't like I came up with a new idea. Most people knew, what bacon was, most were. But we recognized a niche in the market because we made pre-cooked bacon, and we noticed that the big companies, here's kind of the products we sell. If you'd like to buy them, here's what they cost. and we felt like we could put a dent in that market or find enough market share by basically coming in and basically creating for primarily the restaurant industry. We're primarily a food service provider, and that we could custom make and really listen, create products that the customers want. Turned out, it wasn't easy. It was probably the hardest thing I did, from a standpoint. Raised a lot of money, which puts a lot more pressure, and it was tough, the first couple of years, getting it up and going. But we did that, and then kind of all the way forward to Skillwork was probably the where I really saw a need in the market and we created a service and basically to address a problem in the market. So I think anytime you create a business, whether you're selling insurance or any other product, there needs to be a need in the market. If I take something to the market that not only does nobody need, but nobody wants, you're not going to be in business very long.
Yeah.
And so with Skillwork, and we can get into it more here in a minute, but we recognized this skilled trade shortage. It was basically taking what I knew from my manufacturing life and this huge shortage of skilled maintenance industrial technicians, and felt like if we could create a model that was a little bit unique from the traditional temporary agencies or headhunters, that there was a business there. But we were first to market, and which is exciting and scary and stupid sometimes all at the same time.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. It means the absolute world to us. I just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor of this podcast, Oracle Insurance. As many of you may know, everything is more expensive these days. Our food, gas, groceries, really everything, but it doesn't have to be that way. What Oracle does is they go to market and they find the best A-rated carriers for your exact needs. We truly work for you and not for the carrier. So we want to help you find the best option, whether it's life insurance, home insurance, auto insurance, or anything like that. You need to check this out and see if it makes sense for you. Go ahead and call the number on the screen or check out the website in the description. Again, thanks for tuning into the podcast. Now back to it.
Brett, can I ask you, so
Yeah.
was there with whether it was you or your partner, Tim, did one of you have an aha moment where you're because the concept's awesome, right? But was it one day you're just sitting around boom, this is it, or was it was it a process of coming up with that?
It's an interesting story, and I'll try to shorten it as much as I can. So I sold the food company in 2013, and as part of the arrangement, which I wanted to be part of the arrangement, I agreed. I had a non-compete. I agreed to go work for the company we sold it to, Monogram Foods.
Which, just so you know, I won a golf tournament in Shelby County this summer, and I got 5 pounds of bacon from Monogram. That's no joke.
Will and I have a unique intersection of the plant that I had in Harlan, and I didn't know Will at all at that time. That he grew up not very far from there in a really small town.
Yeah.
And so, anyhow, I sold that. I had a non-compete for 2 years. Being an entrepreneur, I knew the day my 2-year non-compete was over, I would leave and do something else. And I really thought that I would start another food company. I really thought I'd start another food company and go in competition with the people I'd sold it to. But this is kind of where my faith intersects with probably more so than ever in my business journey. Because for a lot of my professional career, I probably didn't intersect my faith and my professional desires as much as I could have or should have. For a long in the food business, it was kind of like I wanted to prove what I could do, and Skillwork, was a different kind of a business. It was one that God downloaded the vision of Skillwork to me, and it was kind of like, all right, if you trust me, let me show you what I can do. And the way that came to be, so Tim, my business partner that you referred to, about to, I needed to move on. The Monogram thing, working inside of another company, they were fine, they were great, but they were in Memphis, I was in Omaha, I wasn't moving to Memphis, and I was just ready. And Sally knew, my wife, she knew, you're gonna leave this really good paying job to go do something else, aren't you, that isn't gonna pay us anything initially. And so, so I had got to know Tim through a variety of different things, and so we were actually, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and again, with my faith, I was praying into that. I'm now 3 years, I'm a year past my non-compete, but I just don't have any clear direction as to what I'm supposed to do. And so as I do sometimes, I decided, God needed a little help. And so Tim and I started talking about starting an organizational health consulting company. So if you've ever listened to Pat Lencioni, he's probably the leading company. He owns a company called the Table Group out of California. He's,
Yeah, we talked about Working Genius.
His podcast is big. And so, yes, Working Genius. Yeah. And he wrote a book prior called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and a lot of people, a lot of companies have read. And so we were gonna start a consulting business doing that. And I went to share that story with an attorney here in town that I had become good friends with, a mergers and acquisition guy, because I knew he would shoot straight. I don't know why I felt the need to go tell him, hey, here's what I'm going to. He would always check in with me, go, hey, what are you going to do? Because he was involved when we did the acquisition, and so I went to tell him, and it's one of those that I could tell you what the temperature was. It was misty that day. I mean, it is in my head, and this would have been in early 2017, and I told him, I said, hey, Mike, I've decided, me and 2 other guys, I had another partner, we're going to start a consulting company doing organizational health. And he paused for a minute, and Mike was a guy, I went to him because I knew if he was a doctor, he would say, you're going to die. There wasn't going to be any no sugarcoating going on. And he said, his answer to me was, or his response to me was, you and every other 55-year-old who doesn't know what he wants to do. And I'm like, I don't think that's a positive thing. But as in from ours, and I know it's your guys' too, it was God's way of kind of directing my path, and I'm a believer that as you step in, God will direct it. He's not going to pull you off the couch. You're going to have to step in. And type of thing. And so Mike began, at that point, he started a conversation. He goes, why don't you let me, he goes, I do all these mergers acquisitions. I work with all these companies. They've got to turn these companies around. I can keep you as busy as you want to be as a traveling fractional CEO. And I'm listening to him, and I'm still stinging from what he just said a minute ago. I'm thinking, I got to call Tim and Rob and go, hey, Mike thinks this is a bad idea. And so I literally walk down and I get in my truck, and same truck that I have now that I'll always have as long as it runs, is in that 20-minute drive. I was at One Pacific Place where their offices were, and I lived out west in Omaha. For those that are from Omaha, you know what that means. And in that 20 minutes, the closest I've ever come to having a direct conversation with God, he downloaded it to me. It became crystal clear that it wasn't me that was going to travel, but that the maintenance technicians that if we could, I had no idea how we were going to do it, but it was as clear, that this is what it was supposed to be. So that, when you say, was there an aha moment? The aha moment was in that 20-minute truck ride. And we have a saying at work, that when you come to work at Skillwork, you may not have been in the truck with me that day, but once you say yes to this, you're in this purpose with us. And so that's the shortest version of that story I can give you.
No, that's so good.
That's awesome.
I want to back up to something you said prior to all of that, where you talked about how you feel like you've always been an entrepreneur and you have this blessing but a curse, this gift but a curse of essentially not being fearful and being able to jump in on things. I just heard this quote. It was so amazing. I don't know who said it, so I'll just say it has once been said. But someone said that there is someone out there making 10 times more than you, and they're not as smart as you because they're not smart enough to doubt themselves. And I was like, that is phenomenal. And so it gets me thinking as a young dude, I'm only 24 years old, and what would be your couple pieces of advice to a young person who does feel that same way? They're like, I'm not fearful. I want to be an entrepreneur. I feel like God's called me to start something or lead something. I love asking people with experience this question. What would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self, your 21-year-old self before everything really got started? Like how much could have been different if you could go back and say something to yourself? What would you say? What's the piece of advice you'd give to your younger self or young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, Will could probably answer this question too. Maybe he has for you, but I think it's a combination of things. Because I've been blessed and fortunate enough to start a few companies and survive that. And they've been successful in most people's terms, kind of a thing. And so. I get the opportunity where a lot of people will ask, well, I think I want to be an entrepreneur. I think I want to be this. So I think the first question is really kind of deciding, are you really wired for it? Because I think everybody wants to do their own thing. But there, there's a saying that when you're building a business, or I like to think of it bigger, because I think what God called us to at Skillwork is bigger. So I literally think that we're making history, and when you're making history, it feels a lot like work, because that's the reality. So when you're starting a business, whatever it is, big or small, it's going to feel a lot like work, and it's going to be a lot of work. And so I think just having a recognition at an early point that there's no the good and bad of social media and everything is things look a lot easier than they are.
Right.
And so it is a lot of work. And so I think having that, I said it before, if I were going to go back and tell myself, I wish I would have invited God more into my second company, the food company. That one I think I would have liked to seen if I'd invited him to the table with that a little more instead of I invited him in when I couldn't figure out how on Thursday I was going to make payroll on Friday, but,
Right.
but other than that, then I was like, I got it. And
and I think to give you credit, because knowing that the bacon plant was we call it back home, because I grew up there, right? Graduated high school there. I think you did, because even though sometimes you maybe didn't talk about it, I've met people, a close family friend that right when your name, and I think your dad worked in the business with you too, right? Right when I brought up you and your dad, he immediately became teary-eyed because you guys changed his life. Yeah. So even though, you were godly to him, even through your actions and how you led, which led him to have just a heart for you guys. Yeah. So that's really cool.
And I appreciate you sharing that. You're right. The difference was, in that business, my faith was personal to me. I didn't bring my faith into it. At Skillwork, our values, we have 3 values. Every employee could tell you what they are. It's to bring honor to God in everything we do, to bring value and respect back to the trades, and to measure our success by the number of people we positively impact, and bringing honor to God. So when I say, God is 100% in this, but we feel it's His business. He showed it to us. At the bacon company, it was more, I never hid my faith. I mean, I probably almost always had my Bible on my desk and that type of thing. But it was still it was more separate.
It was more about making bacon.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was. And so, which is a God thing, but
that's good. It is delicious.
And so,
No, that's awesome. So was this the second company that you had started that eventually you grew it to a point where you had 250 employees?
So the bacon company, we had 250. When we started, we basically obviously didn't have any any sales, you know, and then when we sold it, you know, so I started that company and we built the plant in '04, opened in January of '05 and sold it in October of 2013. So, you know, roughly in those 8 years, you know, we kind of went from zero to, you know, a little over 100 million in revenue and those, you know, a couple hundred employees at that point. So prior to that, you know, I had the food brokerage business, and so that, but that was a smaller. It was me and you know, just a couple other you know people, but it was another one. It was my first, you know, other than, you know, mowing yards or selling candy on the school bus or something like that. You know, it was the first business. That one, you know, we merged with a larger brokerage company, and then the food company we sold, obviously. But.
So we'll get into the concept and the idea and just hear from you on leading 250 people. I think that's a whole little segment in itself. But in growing in revenue generation that much, what does it take to go from 0 to 100 million?
It's kind of like we said before. It just it takes a lot of work, a lot of perseverance. You know, it's somebody told me once, you can't lose if you don't quit.
Yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, there's going to be days you want to quit. It would just probably be easier.
Yeah.
You know, or at least you think it would be for a second. But so, you know, you just keep going. You keep hustling. You know, that was a business that required more assets and more you know, cash flow, because you're, you know, all those kinds of things. So you always, you know, there was a lot, you know, with that, that you always felt like, you know, but I think Ed Milet says it, if you ever listen to his podcast, but is that the distance between failure and success is not very far, but most people, they're almost there, but they just can't see the breakthrough, and you tend to quit just before the breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a thing. There's no secret, or there's no you just gotta keep going. You gotta believe in what you're doing. You know, when God calls you to it, you know, I think even more so. You know, some of it you gotta, you know, you believe in yourself, but you know, when you really turn it over to, you know, if you're a person of faith and you turn it over to God, it's like, God called me to this, and so He doesn't fail. So you know, you know,
and I think when you know what your purpose is, which you guys truly do at Skillworks, like it's you know, like you're not giving up because you know He's in it, and you know what your purpose is, and it's not, you know, it's not about making money, it's about changing lives, changing all those you come in contact with. Could I ask you? So partnerships can be hard, and how, and knowing both you and Tim, you're both just solid, humble guys, you know, both men of faith. But how has that helped you, and has there been struggles, or how do you guys make that work so well?
You know, you're right. Partnerships can be challenging. You know, and I think a lot of times they are challenging. You know, the good thing, especially like with Tim and I, is Tim's a almost 25-year Navy officer. You know, then went into into a couple other companies. You know, obviously he had been out of the Navy for a while, you know, before we came with us. But the you know, I think the unique thing with him and I is we have two different skill sets, but they complement each other. I think that where a lot of partnerships get really challenging, if you have two people that are the vision, you know, or two people that are deep into the weeds of the operations, you know. So for Tim and I, you know, I'm the out front guy, I'm the client guy, I'm the vision guy. He can do it. I mean, he's as good or a better speaker than I am. You know, he's you know, does a lot of that type of stuff, through his church and stuff, and but he's a very tactical. When you talked about working genius, he's a GT, galvanizing and tenacity, and I'm a DG, I'm a discernment galvanizer. So I'm more the vision guy and rally the team and let's go win this thing. And he loves to get down in the 5,000 foot stuff and just let's go, kind of a thing. And so part of it is that. Yeah, the other thing too, I think in a partnership that's key is you need to separate. You'll rarely hear me, and I think even today, Luke, when you gave me a little bit of that bio, you said president and CEO. I rarely use the term founder, because they're two different things, and that's one of the things that with my two partner, I have another partner. He's silent in the business, but is that there's a difference between your role as an owner and a founder and your role in the company.
So yeah, that's good.
And you have to keep those separate because otherwise it's like, well, I founded this. Well, yeah, but this is your job here, and if you can't do this job, if I can't do this job, then somebody else is going to do it. I'm still going to own the company, but that's, and you have to be okay with that. And that, the best example, and he would have no problem me sharing this. Our third partner, Rob, who's great. We pray with Rob 3 or 4 times a week in the morning, but when we started the company, we were all three going to work in the company, and he was going to run the sales. And he realized it, I would say probably the same time I realized it, that he was in Dallas, we were here. He worked for Hewlett-Packard, and he was a very, very successful sales guy. But he had never sold something that nobody had ever heard of, kind of a thing. And so he realized early on, that, I don't know, he couldn't do it. So, the long story short, and again, he would have no issue. Matter of fact, he encourages me sometimes to say, so I basically, he's still my partner, but I had to let him go from this role in the company. He couldn't do it. It wasn't his, he didn't have it. So having that distinction, so it's really made it kind of easy to go, everybody's got to be able to do their job because our business partner got fired. Now, that's a little dramatic, but, but that, he
stepped away from that part of it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So let's jump into this aspect of the systems needed, the mindset needed, and the perseverance needed to successfully lead over 250 employees. A lot of the times when I think about those things, I think about the way our church does it. I think they have incredible systems for up top leadership, visionary, but then there's empowerment at different levels for those people to be coaches or managing people and all that. So talk a little bit about how it's worked best for you to effectively and efficiently lead that many people.
Yeah, as your companies grow, whether it be the food company that we grew to that size, or today, here in Omaha we have 38 employees, and then in the field we have another 170 employees, and so, but the real key is in both of those businesses. I always used to say when we built the bacon plant, I'm making the appointments, for the truck drivers, somebody's got to do it. And there's, there wasn't that many employees, when you start. And it was kind of the same when we started Skillwork. It was the 3 partners, and then I had 3 employees. And so you have to do everything. The key to growth and the key to then being able to scale is then you have to start to create the systems, and you've got to remove yourself from those things. And the hardest part, I think, for people who've found companies, or you own the company, or you're the president or whatever, is there's a difference between, they say, if you delegate task, you'll you'll create followers. If you'll delegate responsibility, you'll create leaders.
Yeah.
And so the key is to delegate responsibility, because if you hold it, you'll become the ceiling on any business.
Yeah.
You won't be able to scale or grow to that size. So it's about the systems, and that's where Tim is so critical in ours. We spent the first couple of years just building these systems, and always with the idea of we're building this system so that we can 10x. What's it look like? When we're 10x this size. So it's really about the systems. It's about building up. We spent a fair amount of time in both encouraging and providing professional growth opportunities. We've hired an outside coaching company that a lot of my younger leaders that I put them into, and it's been really beneficial. And so,
since you just brought that up, I would love to ask you about that. I just think about some recent conversations I had with my dad and uncle. They both do, maybe not very different things, but definitely different things. But I've asked them recently, have you ever thought about shelling out a good amount of money for a business coach or a mentor or some kind of program or something of that sorts that would take you to the next level in your business? Has there been something that personally, and you just talked about how you had maybe done this for some of your younger leaders, what's been the power of hiring out coaches and mentors to continue to elevate your people and even yourself as a leader within a company like that?
It's been, and this is just a reality of we're all prideful, and if you've been even a little bit successful at something, your pride just grows a little bit more, and so which usually leads to, I don't need help, which is not a good spot to be.
Yeah, be a disaster at some point.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So I've become more and more. It's crazy. I've for years have consumed a lot of leadership information and books, and now podcasts, and I try to give that back. I'm leading 15 or 16 of our employees right now this year through a personal growth plan, and investing in them in that way. And one of the things that God's been nudging at me for a long time is that you need a coach too. You need somebody that you can do that. So I will, admit I have not been good. Matter of fact, I was going down the path of hiring myself and Tim an executive coach when I, like I often do, I decided to spend the money on the other people, and so I ended up hiring the coach, but then having them work with the other folks. But I think it matters. I do. I was having this conversation with a couple people in the men's group on Tuesday, and about half of them in that room had a coach. They have a coach and they invest in that. And then a couple of other, it's like, no, I haven't, done that. And so I think you do. I think it's a good thing. I mean, if you think about it, any sport, anything, Tiger Woods had a coach.
Right.
So,
yeah, worked out pretty good.
Yeah. So I do think, I think you've got to, as leaders, first and foremost, you got to lead yourself, which means you got to invest in yourself, or you're not going to be that good leading other people. So,
Speaking of leadership, so now you're kind of taking something and you're stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit and stepping into the public, if you call it politics with school board, but it is. So tell me why. You're busy. You're running a company, a successful company, and you chose to step out and add a little bit more to your plate. But what was the burning desire for that, and how did that come to be?
Yeah, and thanks for asking. So, so if you're local and you live in Elkhorn, I'm running for Elkhorn School Board, and so
make sure and vote for this guy.
Come on.
Yeah. So, but the drive behind that was kind of twofold.
Because you have no kids in school.
I don't.
Right?
I don't. My kids went to Elkhorn. They've graduated. I have grandkids in the district, but they're young, And so, but it's really about that leadership. One, it's a combination. And one, I'm at a point in my career where I feel like, God's blessed me with a lot I need to give back. And then, but also, I started attending some of these types of things, and I think I'm concerned that if we lose the public school system, if people lose their confidence and we have great schools in Elkhorn, as you know, and so, but if the public loses confidence in the public school system, that's a really, really challenging thing for us across the U.S., let alone here in Nebraska or in Omaha specifically. And so I just felt like I needed to provide that leadership. And today I look at it, no disrespect whatsoever to the people that currently sit on the Elkhorn School Board or any school board, but the more solid, level-headed business leadership you can get there. They're running really large budgets of taxpayer dollars and have significant authority. The unfortunate part, a lot of school boards have delegated that responsibility to the administration, which isn't the design of the system. The design of the system is the school board is voted in. Administration is not voted in, they're hired. Right. Yeah. And so you're voted in, so you represent the voter and the taxpayer. And so you have a responsibility in that. And so I think as leaders, people who have that ability, I think you got to sacrifice some of your time. Obviously, I mean, you probably have all figured out you don't get paid to be on the school board.
Right, yeah.
And so you're not doing it for the money. And so, but I just think I think the kids matter. Yeah. And I think we want to provide, the best future for them that we can. And so I just felt like it was something I could sit around and complain about it, or I could step into it.
Yeah.
So, and I do believe, that, and again, as you would expect, I felt like God called me to it. Matter of fact, I've kind of half jokingly said many times, I keep asking him, are you still calling me? Because I don't know if I have time. But he hasn't said no, so I'm gonna keep going. So I think when you are called to do something, I do think he'll provide you the time and the capacity. Yeah. To get
strength,
it done. Yeah, and the strength. So.
Yeah, and I think it's something like as business owners, we can't become complacent in our business because we're gonna fall behind and that things change so fast, and that's kind of why we do this podcast is all the new stuff and all the old stuff we've done. So, but I think on school boards they have become maybe complacent in some areas because the devil is deceitful and how he can get his little agendas into anything, whether it's your business or whether it's in schools, and we've seen that and we've seen the result of it, and we are fortunate where we're at. Yeah. I commend you, and it's been fun. We went and knocked on doors, and that was just a blast, and just to learn all that stuff. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I'm by nature I'm more introverted than extroverted. I would never get on a stage, Luke, and rap or anything. And so one, because I don't have the talent, and two, because I'd be scared to death. And but it is kind of interesting. So I'm introverted by nature, but it's when you go out and you talk to people, whether you're running this or you're doing a pod, but specifically when you're knocking on the door of a stranger, and getting in a conversation. But it becomes, I love, it's a weird thing. You really kind of can build energy because you're connecting with people and you're talking about things that matter to them and hopefully, sharing what matters to you. So yeah, it's fun to connect. So
that's awesome.
Will brought up a little piece of it just a moment ago, and right before we started this, we were talking about how you and Skillwork, you guys have a podcast yourselves and some different things like that. As you're navigating 2024 and beyond, what role does social media and video, YouTube, podcasting, what role does that play in the marketing and otherwise the brand building of what you guys do? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, the older people are on this side of the room, and so but you can't be so old school, to not recognize the need to be out there and the need to do that. So it's a big part of, we, even when we didn't know if the concept was going to work, we started investing early on in our brand. I always said, if we're going to put anything out there, I want the content to look good. I mean, I think there's one thing worse than not putting any content out there is putting bad content out there. And so, now it doesn't have to be totally pop. I mean, there's stuff that people put on their phone and put it out there, and it's great. But so I'm a believer in using all those platforms, keeping your content fresh, putting it out there. We utilize that. We actually, for the first few years, as we were just talking a little bit ago, a lot of that Tim and I kind of manage. We outsource our content and our that marketing piece, mostly the content creation. But Tim and I were kind of managing it internally, which kind of made us the marketing managers, kind of a thing. And so then, end of last year, I promoted a lady in our office who is a very gifted professional. She was setting a different seat. She was my executive assistant, and then she was a client support administrator for our team. So we elevated her to marketing manager in December. And just in that amount of time, the difference in what we're doing and putting out, because now I have somebody that's focused on it. And it's one of those where you look back and you go, I was the ceiling on it, because I was just kind of,
Go through the motions.
Yeah, fitting it in, and we're doing these things, but nobody's really active. So we're taking it up another notch. We're doing a lot of things. But I'm not an expert in any of it. I don't understand most of it. And so, like you said, we do 2 podcasts a month. We record 2 a month that we release. One about every 3 weeks, called the Skillwork Forum. So we do thought leadership into, industrial maintenance in the manufacturing space primarily, which is a space where we live mostly in our business. And then we do another podcast called The Proud Skill Worker, where we want to hear from skilled tradespeople and whatnot. And we have that hosted by a guy that leads our communications, Cap Chatfield. And so we do those. And then a variety of small clip videos and all these, different things. I'm sure you've definitely seen it for sure. I'm sure Will has too. Yep. The idea of kind of, there's a video here and somebody's reacting to that. Seems to be a very popular way to connect right now. And so we've started doing a lot of those 30-second clips or 20-second clips. So, don't ask me any hard question about any of it, but I believe that, you got to be out there and you got to be doing it.
Great point for sure. I want to circle back maybe just a bit. When you talk about building businesses, being an entrepreneur, this is something we just did an episode about not too long ago, but how do you find a healthy work-life balance? I believe you've been married for 30 years, is it?
32, be 33 in October.
There you go, come on. But in that, again, as a young person, that's something I'm working through, is there's been times in my life where I feel like, our pastor PT had a message where he was talking about work your tail off, kick your feet up, and how him and a lot of other guys, they're just so prone to work and work and work. I was like, I'm prone to just kick my feet up and hang out. And so there's been different periods of my life where I felt like, man, I don't feel like I'm doing enough genuinely. And then it's getting into this point where I'm really trying to build something. Me and Will are trying to build something where me and my wife are doing stuff with the young adults at Love Church and all these different things. And I wonder, what is the best way to have a healthy work-life balance when you are an entrepreneur and you do need to build something and you're gonna have the early mornings and the late nights? What does that conversation look like with your wife or the people closest to you? How do you still make sure that you care for them and love on them and spend time with them, even as you're building something and you know that especially at the start, it's going to take a lot of your time.
I'm going to break your heart in that and tell you that I'm a guy. I think and here I go. Here goes the old guy comment. Your generation. He's
going to come out at some point.
I think they worry way too much about work-life balance. I think work-life balance is, I don't think it exists. So I'm not a believer in work-life balance. I'm a believer in seasons. And I think too many people put too much pressure on themselves trying to find this balance that really doesn't exist. And so there's going to be seasons of your life where if I'm going to start a company, there is no balance.
Yeah,
now
it's survival.
It's survival,
Yeah.
and you have to recognize when that season becomes a lifestyle. PT and I remember when I started the baking company, and he's sitting at my dining room table, and we had this exact conversation. He said, "It's okay. It's a season. Now, if your season becomes your lifestyle, you're going to have to figure that out."
That's great.
And it got close, and I had to start to figure this out a little bit. So there's just going to be seasons of that. Like now, I'm running a company. A few years ago, the same year that I started Skillwork, Pastor Todd, who we're talking about, he asked me to lead the project to run the church. Or to build the church. To build it. And I thought, are you crazy? Do you not know that I just started this company? And but he knew that I started the company, but he just, and it's one of those where I said, if you'll lean in, God will provide the capacity. So there's just seasons of time, and I think people worry too much, but it does come down, you're a married man now, to really healthy communication. And saying, hey, when I made the decision to run for school board, I didn't surprise Sally with that decision.
Or you wouldn't be hitting 33 years.
Yeah. We'll be, we will probably be knocking doors on our anniversary together. Because that's right before the general election. And so I think it's a lot about communication. It's a lot about recognizing seasons over lifestyle. You do have to, Luke, I think what a lot of it is learning what to say yes to and what to say no to. That's where the balance comes in, is kind of recognizing that and having those conversations. I'm also, I'm probably one of the more disciplined people that you'll talk to, but I do that. I try to explain as I'm coaching people through personal growth and whatnot is you've got to understand your why. And my why, to the reason my day starts at 4 a.m. And I work out early. I do a lot of stuff to keep myself healthy and do that. But I tell you, I don't do it. I eat an extremely strict lifestyle and all these things. But I do it all because my why is I want to be ready for the things that God's calling me into. And the only way that I can have that capacity is I have to live this way. I can't make a lot of bad choices and decisions and then go, my life feels out of balance. I'm tired. I'm this. I'm that. Kind of a thing. So I think, somebody said it, I don't remember who it is, but, discipline and consistency in your life actually expands your capability. Most people look at it and go, I don't have time to work out. Well, I would argue when you work out, it creates more, more
energy.
capacity, more energy, more, I don't have time
motivation.
to eat right. I don't have time to do this. I don't have, these kind of things. I think those small disciplines create consistency, as Maxwell says, consistency compounds. And that, so I look for more, how do I expand my energy? How do I expand my time? We all only have 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
But that's, I look at it more from that way. And then don't beat yourself up you know, if you have seasons that are just, they're not in great balance. They just aren't. And so.
Yeah, I think that's a good word of encouragement for that young entrepreneur, that young business owner, is that, you know, knowing when to say yes and when to say no. You're going to say yes to some things that you shouldn't have. And I think, and I've been there a ton of times, you probably have as well, but that learning from those and learning from those, you know, those things that you do that weren't, you know, looking back and reflecting on and saying, oh, okay, yeah, I made a mistake to that, or I'm out of rhythm, and trying to reevaluate, get realigned to that thing is a huge thing to do, because you can get pulled in a lot of directions, especially starting a business. You know, there's a lot of things that can go on. So that's a little encouragement for those people maybe going through that right now.
Yeah, and challenge yourself. Look at the things. I just the one of the recent questions in this group is what are the 3 things that are stealing your self-discipline? And you know, and guess what? Almost all of them said, you know, that thing that's probably in your pocket somewhere. And so, you know, scrolling on that thing, you know, or something. But it could be a variety of those things. So I think it's really around that. And you're going to say no. You know, you're going to say no to good things. You know, my wife and I, Sally, we've been involved in marriage ministry for years, and during some seasons, I've had to say, no, I can't lead that group right now, even though it's a great thing. You know, it's not like I don't want these people to have a good marriage, but I can't make it work right now.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I'm just saying no to bad things.
Yeah, it's just,
you're gonna have to say no to some things, you know, even some good things, just in this season. So.
Yeah, that's good.
That's amazing. Let's end off with this, unless afterwards, if there's anything you want to close or ask. I think this is one thing I had down is there any story that comes to mind when you think about a particular challenge or something that was super difficult along your whole journey of 30, 40 years of building businesses, running them? What's one situation that sticks out in your mind of a really difficult time, but you persevered through and you were able to see to the other side? Is there something that comes to mind when you think, man, this time was super challenging, this is what happened, and this is how we got through it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of them, you know, over the years, you know, where you have to, you think of it, from biblical times, God leads them out of Egypt, and then, not much longer, they're grumbling in the desert, kind of a thing. And so that's kind of the nature of the journey when you're building businesses is there's going to be, times of a breakthrough, and then there's going to be challenging times, and there's the other, a lot of things. I say it almost flippantly anymore, but it was real at the time. And there was many times in the food company, for probably, several months at a time, where literally on Thursday, I didn't know how we were going to make payroll on Friday, and you're making phone calls and you're doing and your type of thing, and so those types of things. But those are the things, Luke, that it builds your confidence when you get through it and you have that small breakthrough, and sometimes it doesn't cause you to take unnecessary risk. It just builds your confidence that we got through it. We got through that. We're in every business. When I started Skillwork, and we got off, and all of a sudden it looked like this is going to work, and the growth was kind of straight up and to the right. And I always knew my biggest concern is that we're going to level out, and we're going to hit some headwinds, and it's going to get harder. And for a lot of these people they've never been through this, they're going to be the ones grumbling in the desert, and I'm going to have to go, hey, this is when it actually, gets fun, because right over there is a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right.
But you got to keep going, or you're going to miss the break. And not everybody will make it through.
Yeah.
There will people that will that will jump off, right before it because they get,
Yeah, the adversity scares them a little
yeah,
bit.
adversity scares them, or they just, they didn't sign up for hard, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and, in a business too, it's never just a straight line up, right? It's always up, plateau, up, plateau. So, and those are the opportunities of growth.
Yep.
But those are that's where you got to maybe some people outgrow, the company maybe outgrew somebody in their position, as well. So but it's hard. Those are hard times.
Yeah, those are hard times.
That's where leadership really comes in.
It does. And you tell people, it's the people that were with me, from day one, have a different, perspective. They remember the leanest of leanest times.
Right.
And so when you're here, they too have the confidence, we're going to get to here. But if you showed up in the middle somewhere,
when they're eating steak, but they don't remember the ramens and macaroni and cheese days.
And but I can't look harsh on those people who are down. I've got to coach them up to that. I got to say, all right, now this is your lean season. It's not as lean as here, but this is your lean season. So you have to make a decision individually. Am I going to grow through this season, or am I going to bail?
Right.
And so I mean, there's lots and lots of those stories. Like I said, the entrepreneur of the business, it's not a Facebook story. It's a hard work story. But I'd do it all again all day long, even the crazy moments. And we're I'm at the beginning of another one. I'm only 5 years in, so we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So.
Man, so good. Anything you want to end off with, Will?
No, man, I just, just knowing you and Tim, just your guys' leadership and humble leadership, it is, there's a reason you guys are successful in it. And the people you've touched throughout have just been huge. So your leadership, and, even at the church is so huge. So it's just, we appreciate you coming on here and just sharing some knowledge for us. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. Again, Mr. Brett Elliott, Skillwork, so many different things that you've done. Thanks for coming by and just dropping a plethora of knowledge on us, talking about all kinds of different things. I learned some amazing things during this. This is going to be one of my favorite things to do, is just sit down with amazing people. I've said it to Will a couple times on our podcast, but for someone my age, it's like, get around people that are doing the thing that you want to do, and they've been doing it longer than you've been alive. That's how you gain some wisdom, glean off the people that have been there, done that. Just want to say again, thank you so much, Mr. Brett, for being on here, and we will see you guys next time on the next episode of the Traditions and Trends podcast.
Awesome.
Come on.
Thanks, guys.